Hi everyone, I'm John Pett, author, speaker, and performer.
And I'm Jeff Civilico, entertainer, comedian, and almost as much fun as John.
And together, we're on a mission to take you on a journey that explores and reveals the critical elements for you to survive and thrive within the digital transformation.
We will be here to guide you, to engage you, and get you involved.
To take your questions and get the answers from the experts and execs.
So grab a beverage, get comfortable, and get excited.
Because this is MEF Infinite Edge.
Today, we've got top service and technology experts joining us to examine how industry players are working together to unleash the power of automated networks and encourage development of higher value applications using advanced services and technologies. Starting now. Hello from the clouds. Whee! Hoo-hoo-hoo. Welcome back, everyone, to MEF Infinite Edge. I'm Jeff Civilico, your host for episode 7, as we take to the friendly skies. Ha-ha! I'm flying over to my studio in Las Vegas. Oh, let me check my GPS, see how I'm doing along the way. Uh-oh. We're headed over Area 51. Ooh, I better look out for UFO. They can see your fingers. UFOs, ha! All right, we are on to explore now clouds and collaboration, delivering a unified customer experience. And they can see the stool. Just cut, forget it. Get over the green screen. I'm taking my head out of the clouds while it's still on my shoulders. Jeez. It's time to focus on collaboration. Apparently, it's safer. Now, clearly, some collaborations, they just work, like smartphones and GPS. And some don't, like me and a green screen. Clearly. But technology is not the only genre where we see the value of great collaborations. Of course, food, for example, milk and cookies. Ooh, peanut butter and jelly. Or the controversial pineapple on pizza. Personally, I'm a fan. For the purposes of demonstration, I may need to do a little taste test later. Getting hungry just thinking about it. Now, the real framework of our discussion today centers on how enterprise users increasingly seek an on-demand, secure, high-performance, low-latency experience when accessing applications in hybrid, multi, and distributed cloud environments, and how closer collaboration between hyperscale cloud providers and network service providers is critical to meeting this digital transformation needed in the most simplified, seamless, and resilient way possible. With good collaboration, everyone wins. Now, we'll also learn how MEF is facilitating collaboration through its work on standardized APIs and services within the context of end-to-end automation across a connected ecosystem of enterprises, service providers, and cloud providers. But before we get started, I think we should recap the highlights so far.
You can imagine that when you get to that level of latency, you can create some truly innovative use cases that allow us to use the network to move workloads at the speed at which the mind processes reality.
The work that we've done, it can be very portable and can be leveraged by other organizations as well, other federations, if you will, other communities and so on. And we have a great example of that with Moby today.
Business networks, blockchains, ledgers are essentially collaborative tools and collaborative technologies.
SASE services are really expected to provide an optimal combination of networking and security.
These more complex business scenarios that are actually great opportunities for everyone involved.
While the standards are there, I think getting the ecosystem to work together, make sure that the expected outcome and slicing performance is extended beyond network borders. And I really think like a group like MEF can help standardize these and make sure they work well.
Networking is cool again, right? Networking is cool again.
Clearly, a lot of educational content covered in episodes 1 through 6, and thanks to the generous support of our sponsors, speakers, and analysts, it's all available to you, our audience, on demand on this platform. Feel free to show your appreciation by visiting our sponsor booths below and chatting up our speakers and analysts by using the chat feature to your right. If you like what you hear today or you have any questions, feel free to let them know. Now, we open today's discussion with a very special keynote presentation from Frank Morales, VP Connectivity at Orange Business Services, a MEF 3.0 certified provider. Frank joins us to talk about supporting customers' evolving challenges using a cloud-native approach. But first, a short message.
Ta-da！ 然后我们其实重新启动 MEF-CECP 6566。
是不是 C？
对，就是这个。
这种。
它的密码是1453。
哒哒。
哒哒。
Every day, we use our digital expertise to make the world just a little bit brighter.
Ta-da!
Orange Business Services.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Frank Morales, Vice President at Orange Business Services for Connectivity Services and MEF Board Director. And I really do hope that you are all fine in this period. I'm delighted to open this MEF Infinite Edge series event. Even if, as probably all of you, I can't wait for being again in the same room somewhere at next MEF events in Q4 for having this kind of sharing in addition to social events. In the meantime, looking from my MEF board position, the tremendous and amazing work that you have been able to achieve over the period, I can tell you two things. First of all, it's a great thank you to all of you. The second point is, it is so important as the pace of the technology evolution and customer requirements have accelerated so strongly during and probably because of this period. Today's episode about cloud collaboration delivering a unified customer's experience with what I'm about to share with you is really spot on this fast pace and strong evolution. And all speakers of the day, including Sean Oak from Microsoft and Pascal Menezes, our MEF CTO, will probably not make me wrong on this assessment. So let me now start to share our views on this way of supporting customers' evolving challenges using a cloud-native approach. How we think that telco infrastructures could play an amazing role. How we need to reinforce tightly the relationship between network service providers, cloud network and or security service providers, and hyperscalers to deliver what our B2B customers are awaiting in their course of their digital transformation. But let's start with what our customers have been telling us over the past few months on this particular topic. First of all, they told us that their SD-WAN transformation was a key step for them to be able to cope with the crisis and the business evolution. They are not now in a position to continue and accelerate their transformation. I will not come back on SD-WAN and our flexible SD-WAN flagship offering, but this technology is really the foundation of their digital transformation. Secondly, CIO and CTOs told us that their positions, their roles, have changed within their companies. Only a few months ago, pre-pandemic, their role was somehow simply to run, quote-unquote, the IT or network business. Now they are expected to contribute to transforming the business, to make the business change and evolve thanks to the technology with very clear expectations in terms of accountability and return on investment. Finally, in such a context and facing such challenges, they expect us, all of us, to help them find the best balance between security, flexibility, and performance while bringing to them the best of the technology. And more than ever, in this context of being cloud native, which is for them a big transformation. But let's make that more concrete With few customer demands, we have formalized quoting our customers. As you can see on this slide, we can always theoretically elaborate scheme and where to go. But the requirements are quite concrete and really in the real digital transformation life that they are going through. Not going to all of them, but just highlighting few key points. Take this first one. We are moving to Amazon and Azure at the same time. How can I make my SD-WAN investment a cornerstone to the way to connect to these hyperscalers? Highlighting that multi-cloud is as much foundation for digital transformation as SD-WAN is. The second one, I want to secure my cloud traffic by expanding my SD-WAN fabric to Azure from my data centers. Usage of Azure Virtual WAN or other solution like Amazon Direct Access is a key demand. Third one, I want to keep a virtual private environment englobing my VPN network plus my virtual Amazon private resources. And on top, adding a strong security policy inside this virtual private environment, this one highlighting the importance of security policy while moving flows to and within the cloud, also in private environment with no more trust on the network. I will now go to the top left example as I will deep dive on that one at the end of this keynote. So we can resume all this by speaking about a new paradigm where connectivity infrastructure complexity is moving from earth to cloud. Connectivity infrastructure complexity is moving from earth to cloud. Let me try to explain that by resuming this quite complex new slide. So far, and even if the connectivity to the cloud is now quite a standard topic, the main part of the complexity of the WAN was on earth. To make sure that the routing, the security, the capacity management were fitting with the communications from sites to DC, a bit of site to cloud, but more importantly, from site to site. In this world, all network and security functions were located on earth, as well as applications that users were connecting to. This has moved progressively to a configuration where the main part of the traffic is now from earth to cloud. For applications, for unified communication usage, with cloud-based solution, the site-to-site traffic has been transformed on a site-to-cloud traffic. As an example, during the pandemic, we have seen that quote-unquote cloudification of our customers' communications, collaboration, and customer relationship applications facilitated their ability to adapt their reactivity to maintain and develop the services intended for their customers. And in the meantime, with SD-WAN and cloud security solution emerging strongly, a growing part of security and network functions are also cloud-based. Cloud meaning distributed outside of customer site. Could be within telco cloud infrastructure, but as well in hyperscaler infrastructure. Going ahead, flows are progressively moving upside down from site to cloud to site now. As there is now so much treatment, applications, communication in the cloud, with also the need for communication between cloud regions inside the hyperscaler infrastructure, such as Azure VNet, for example. Next step being the flow management between hyperscalers. So our customers are awaiting us to facilitate this one journey, moving the complexity from earth to cloud. In order to make everyone comfortable, the complexity at site remains still a topic in parallel, with the SD-LAN, with the Wi-Fi 6, with 5G, with IoT, with edge computing, and other evolution to take care of. Don't be surprised of that. So, with such an evolution, what are the different ways to provide agility, security, and performance in a cloud-native world? Within Orange, we have launched a strong transformation to build a new generation international network, achieving our telco cloud infrastructure, transforming our global network towards a single convergent, flexible and cost-effective infrastructure. Leveraging this program, and thanks to our triple expertise as a network infrastructure operator, connectivity services integrator, and a cyber defense expert, we are able to bring more value for budget to our customers in 3 ways. Firstly, providing premium internet end-to-end as a combination of our internet backbone and our internet access management capabilities. Secondly, by developing a wide footprint platform from 40 at the end of 2021 to more than 100 next-gen hubs in 2024, which is a cornerstone of our telco cloud infrastructure. And thirdly, this platform also hosts VNFs to deliver our own services, but also welcome any vendors to make sure that we are providing best-of-breed services from selected technology partners at the right pace to our customers. The masterpiece of this program is the evolution of our next-gen hubs, key pillar of our intelligent network platform. I would say it looks like a MEC. I'll let you assess. Thanks to this infrastructure evolution, we guarantee to deliver the best performance, security, and flexibility without sacrificing one for another. And we have the ability within this platform to deliver on-demand network and security services to secure flows to and from end user wherever they are, whatever network they are connecting to, and for whichever application they use. So how has this come about? Next-gen hub is concretely a telco cloud infrastructure already in use today to host several VNF for our B2B customers, such as SD-WAN and SSL gateways, as well as for our wholesale needs, such as CDN. The specificity of this infrastructure is to be a unique crossing point to reach customer edge, Orange backbone, hyperscalers, and cloud-based security solution. Hence, this is the right place to provide our enterprise next-generation security, voice collaboration to our customers, and of course, SASE. The footprint extension driven by hyperscalers footprint from 40 POPs in 2021 to more than 100 POPs in 2024 is with the continued ambition to be at less than 10 milliseconds from our customers, while we are already at less than 5 milliseconds of main cloud service providers. Finally, when it comes to the key topic of security, next-gen hub being the converging point for all the traffic is the perfect location to secure upon customer policy traffic from the branch to the cloud, ensuring traffic segmentation. Let's see now how next-gen hub is also serving our SASE evolution by welcoming technology partner services inside our intelligent network platform. These next-gen hubs are open to our partners through APIs interconnection or using our hosting capabilities. This to ensure the challenge of fast release management to make sure that our customers are able to access to the latest feature for their preferred vendors in a secured and always available infrastructure. Let's take a concrete view on how we are onboarding partners in our next-gen hub in an API-based way, using this example based on our cooperation with one of our partners on their SASE product. In this example, we are exposing our API directly consumed by the partner's orchestrator for its SASE VNF deployment and lifecycle. The API we use are standard OpenStack API, providing an open solution with no vendor lock-in. In order to ensure an end-to-end service delivery, Orange Service Orchestrator pilots the partner orchestrator, allowing us to provide a unified customer journey, this is very important, and ensuring the attachment with other Orange services used by the customer, such as SD-WAN or IP/MPLS network. So we can see that this model requires a very tight relationship with cloud service security providers or network providers, as well as vendor partners. Let's move forward on being even more precise. This slide resumes with concrete use cases the transformation I have presented to manage and deliver flows to the cloud with the right level of security, performance, and agility. First of all, you can see this wide footprint of NextGen Hub building a performant telco cloud infrastructure directly connected to our Tier 1 internet backbone and our MPLS network. Already hosting lots of VNF, as for example SD-WAN gateways and advanced security features. Then, to make this very concrete, you can see these two use cases showing the importance of this infrastructure to provide the end-to-end solution, fully secured, performant, and agile. First one being the site-to-cloud expansion of the SD-WAN fabrics thanks to SD-WAN gateway. Then securing flows before connecting to the hyperscaler, Azure in that case, through private cloud connect, of course, express route for Azure. Second use case being SASE for remote workers with an SSL VNF hosted in our NextGen Hub, adding SASE capabilities before connecting to hyperscalers thanks to our Internet Tier 1 backbone OTI. The white arrows are showing that all this could provide over-configuration in a very agile way as a telco cloud infrastructure is able to deliver. Services could not only coming from hosted solution, but as well from security and network solution cloud-based connected through APIs. Let's move now forward on addressing the needs of our customers into the cloud. The close relationship with hyperscaler comes with a really strong reality. Last year, we have announced our partnership with Microsoft Azure to continue to evolve above our own infrastructure by becoming a Microsoft Azure networking managed service provider. This to answer our customer requirements, we need to enrich our cloud network portfolio to manage connectivity from user to the application in a secured multi-cloud environment within hyperscaler fabric. To make that concrete, we have developed the following services, exactly mirroring the services we are used to provide from our own infrastructure on Earth. Consulting and design, security, inside Azure in that case, managed connectivity, visibility, and performance. Becoming an Azure network MSP enables us to develop managed services within the Azure network. This with the merge of our double expertise in connectivity and cloud, reinforcing our value proposition and acting as a full stack player, enabling us to address enterprise cloud networking needs and challenges across all areas of cloud and hybrid networking. I'm sure that Sean will elaborate more on this evolution and the necessity of tight relationship between service provider and hyperscaler from his Microsoft Azure position. But let's take a clear example. By using this real request of managing within Azure Fabric, the MEF-CECP flow management across several Azure regions using Azure Backbone in extension of our SD-WAN solution already deployed for this customer. As already mentioned, the SD-WAN transformation of this customer with our flexible SD-WAN solution was done. But then, how did we answer to this demand? We end up by managing this complexity, which is much more than to bring flows to the cloud, and in particular Azure in that case. We are first of all managing the Azure Virtual WAN backbone usage, thanks to our move to become Azure Managed Network Service Provider, as already described, with full stack network and security design using Azure resources, including hubs, express route, and firewall. But more than that, we are also managing the flows in the cloud Azure by combining our expertise on connectivity and cloud. This providing a full guarantee of high availability of ACP, thanks to the capability to replicate application across Azure region, to deploy accordingly also new application in Azure for this customer. As we are doing on Earth, we are also ensuring traffic control, proactive management by operational teams, ensuring as well a full continuity between our own infrastructure and the Azure Virtual WAN infrastructure. So at the end of the day, it is a perfect example of the new era where, due to cloud native evolution, we need for our customers to manage the WAN complexity moving from Earth to cloud. Thanks to this strong move, our customers can count on us to make sure that their cloud native first approach will be managed and that we will be able to smoothly transform and adapt their WAN to this cloud approach. So let's finish these keynotes, where I do hope I have been clear enough to demonstrate how we are moving to an ecosystem play with vendors and hyperscalers to manage the complexity of the WAN moving from Earth to cloud. Thanks for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this Infinite Edge events.
A big thanks to Frank and Orange Business Services for kicking off the show with a look at supporting ever-evolving customer challenges. Up next, the much-needed and highly anticipated cloud provider perspective. Let's listen in as Sean Hackle, VP 5G Strategy with Microsoft, discusses Azure for Operators. Over to you, Sean.
Thanks, Jeff, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Nan and the others on the board of the MEF for inviting me here today to share a little bit with you Microsoft's perspective. I think this is particularly important given that MEF is looking very carefully at sort of the effective network slicing and how 5G and SD-WAN work together end to end to provide that seamless experience to the operators. So I'd like to provide a perspective from sort of the other end of the communication, which is the destination, which is the cloud and the app side. And so I'll share today with you a little bit about Microsoft's Azure for Operator strategy, which is essentially our foray into this space. With that, I will jump into this and keep moving. Being Microsoft's VP of 5G strategy, I often get asked why Microsoft even has a strategy around 5G, and I'm not going to extol you with all the awesomeness that 5G can do, because I'm sure you know it probably is better as well or better than I can. What I can share with you, however, is sort of why Microsoft gets excited in this space and why we view operators as natural partners and the industry as natural partners for us. In a 7x24 always-on connected world, almost every transaction that goes from the mobile to the cloud, every connected device to cloud-based service is going to transit an operator on its way to the cloud. And so we think it's incredibly important for us to have a very close partnership with the operator community and in order to ensure that mobile to cloud experience is simple, it's secure, and it's resilient. And so we view that as a natural place for us to come together. The other thing I'd like to share is that we pull a lot of interesting data from our platform that tells us where we see the innovations in 5G really moving forward. And so I'd like to share sort of as a result of the more than 5 billion trending to actually 10 billion per month cognitive service transactions that we do, as I sift through the data, the more than 1 million machine learning experiments that get done on our platform every month, and looking at the use cases associated with the almost 7 billion devices that IoT devices that we manage today through IoT Central, IoT Hub. We've sort of narrowed down sort of where we see a lot of the interest in the user base in 5G. To start with, right, we view our mission to be the world's computer, and we see the combination of 5G, in particular the eMBB or the high bandwidth mobility offering, together with compute at the edge, giving people access to compute where they need it, when they need it, ubiquitous end compute. And once you've got ubiquitous compute, you really move into this ability to intersect the physical and the virtual world. And that's where we see the ability to bring together 5G, particularly MMTC and URLLC, together with the power of edge compute, cognitive services, and the IoT capabilities at the edge of the network, in order for us to be able to instrument the real world and use the power of big data and AI to really affect what goes on. And so I'll give you an example of that. We see a lot of interest in intelligent video. So this is a case where, for example, people take and analyze a high bandwidth video feed to understand what's going on in an environment, whether it's for worker safety purposes, production, or a pick and pack quality assurance, where you can actually interpret that camera feed. There's about 1,000-to-1 compression between sort of the video data into the data you pass into your inference engine, analyze it there, and actually make real-time changes. The low latency of 5G combined with the presence of ubiquitous edge compute allow you to actually affect the real world versus waiting around like you do in 4G today, where you collect data, ship it to the cloud, and it can tell you what to do next time. And then finally, much as we are communicating today over a remote link versus meeting face to face in a presentation in a forum or in an arena, we see the next generation of content experiences taking place over 5G and in new forms, whether it be the way we play, the way we learn, or the way that we work with collaboration, whether it be for mixed reality, for working on enterprise cases or in gaming, whether it be the next generation of collaboration suite, etc. All of this see we coming together. So as a result, Microsoft is coming closer and closer with the operator community to make these services work seamlessly for our end users together. So what is Azure for operators? Well, if you think about it, it's a customer-led initiative. In other words, what pulled us into this space? It's really customer-led. And if you think about it, traditionally, Microsoft has worked with the IT department at the operator, really bringing forward either infrastructure and more recently ways to automate and optimize business process with the analysis of analytics and big data. And what that is really, if you think about it, the complication created in that back office IT shop is driven a lot by the underlying complexity of the network. So a conversation that started in the IT department ended up in talking with the network as well. Similarly, on the product side of the house, we've had a long history of partnering with operators around the globe. You may have seen our announcements with Verizon bringing together their ThingSpace API, programmable network APIs, together with Microsoft's IoT Hub and IoT Central APIs to provide that end-to-end programming environment for developers. You may have seen us bring the power of Azure Sphere together with the AT&T Guardian device to create a root of trust-based public safety offering, or more recently with Telstra, where we're combining our capabilities along with Telstra's narrowband IT to deal with video analytics at the edge. So that's naturally led for conversation that started off in product marketing and led into the network. You couple those sort of conversations with a secular trend towards SDN and NFV, software-based networks, and the adoption of cloud-friendly technologies like the service-based architecture and 5G, and you really got something where Azure becomes more and more applicable to the core network itself. And that's what Azure for Operators is. It's the use of cloud technologies for core networking workloads, whether that be for the Evolved Packet Core, the SBC, SD-WAN, enterprise firewall. It's really leveraging the power of the cloud to make the network more efficient, more effective, treating the infrastructure as software, not a vertically integrated hardware stack, and then bringing the power of AI and ML together to deliver self-optimizing networks and massive end-to-end automation, allowing people to scale to take advantage of the next generation of industrial IoT. Now, as we do that, there's often a lot of debate in the industry of what that means between sort of the operators and the hyperscalers and how they're going to work together. We thought it was easiest just to write that down and share with you what our principles were. And for us, this is not a fundamental change in business. This is essentially us leveraging the playbook that's proven so successful on the enterprise side of our business and applying it to a new customer-driven area, which is the operator's network itself. So we're bringing the power of cloud in place to help future-proof folks' network by making it more software-driven. We're taking out costs through extreme automation and flexible infrastructure. And then most importantly and most excitingly, open up the new revenue streams, helping people leverage the power of the programmable network to create new revenue streams to monetize these deep investments in 5G. In the process, however, Microsoft is and continues to be a partner-oriented company. Our intent is for the operator to own the customer, to own the product. We just want to see it powered by our technology because fundamentally we're a platform business. Our focus is on moving workloads to a carrier-grade cloud. And for us to do that, for us to take advantage of cloud technologies for the mobile operator and for the wireline operator, we really needed to change the definition of cloud away from sort of the traditional centralized public cloud regions into a hybrid model. We'll meet you where you are, whether that be at the edge of the enterprise, the edge of the network, the edge of the cloud, or in the cloud itself. We see a value in providing a common orchestration layer, common lifecycle management, common security and policy, and common DevOps across that, regardless of where you're at, but still being able to place things physically where it's needed in the network, because we know telecom is heavily distributed. That's not going to change. So the cloud had to change to match that. The other thing I think it's important to note is that Microsoft is neither intending to become an operator. We didn't buy Affirmed or Metaswitch to become an operator. We bought them as first-party workloads that could help us better define a carrier-grade cloud. And We didn't buy it to dominate the ecosystem. We very much believe in the power of an open and interoperable ecosystem, and we're just as happy to see anyone's software, regardless if it's our own first-party software or whether it be from our friends at Ericsson, Nokia, Samsung, or others, working on the Azure cloud to bring value to the operator. And this is very much an ecosystem play for us. We're in this for the long haul. This is going to be a journey. We've invested long-term. We expect this to take a long-term transformation. We just believe that the power of the cloud together with the power of 5G brings benefits both to the operators as well as our joint customers, both the enterprise, the consumer, and government. Question I often get is, what does that look like? What does that journey look like? And I want to really present the fact that there's three basic models we see emerging in the industry, and I'll talk to you a little bit about timeframes. First of all, when I started this journey about 18 months ago with Microsoft, we were at sort of what I'll call the first layer, which is software-enabled services, which is really where you're starting to see the power of software-based services come in, but rely primarily on completely on-prem deployments. So at the enterprise side of the house, you had edge compute. We've got more than 16 partnerships with operators and managed services providers around the globe for us to be able to offer a combination of the operator connectivity, both backhaul as well as local private networking, be that 4G or 5G or CBRS based on the enterprise site. We also had in sort of terms of dealing with core operator workloads, the ability to deliver virtualized packet cores, so software-based containerized packet core workloads, which essentially is we've got more than 115 of those with different operators around the world with our acquisition of Affirmed. With the acquisition of Metaswitch, we have more than 400 customers through some form of software-based voice technology. Now, what's happened, and more recently, is we're seeing our very largest customers move a lot of those workloads, whether it be the 5G control plane, which they are centralizing. The more they distribute the edge compute and have more assets out on the customer side, the more you need to centralize to make it maintainable. And so as a result, we're seeing a lot of our largest operators operate their control plane, their 5G core control plane in the cloud. Similarly, we're seeing people taking their voice infrastructure, which is a service line that's matured quite substantially, and they knew new ways to both integrate that experience with that mobile native experience on the voice and the communication side with the next generation of collaboration techniques, or they're just looking to find a way to manage the cost of that infrastructure down over time. Cloud has proven to be an incredibly effective route for that. And that's where we start to see the evolution of cloud-based functions, and that's becoming extremely popular and seeing that more and more today. The last thing I'll say is, as I look at the current round of demand from the customer, in other words, what are we seeing in operators, RFPs, and RFIs? We're increasingly seeing people adopting cloud-enabled services. In other words, what is it like, what is the platform to use cloud technology as part of the core service delivery in the core network? And we're seeing that gin up considerably, especially in the last 6 months. And you'll see us and others making announcements in this space now where people are starting to see the deployment of cloud technology, not just in easily centralizable workloads that can take place in public cloud, but you're going to see distributed cloud capabilities where you start to see workloads like the user plane function, like the VDU and the VCU and the RAN, as open RAN becomes more interesting to people and virtualized RAN becomes more interesting to people. You're seeing those functions pull back to just at the edge, the far edge of the network. And so that's, and that's where we truly get to cloud-enabled services. And that's an exciting development, which is accelerating much faster than I would have said so 18 months ago. So we're very, very excited about that. So what does that look like end to end? What is, Azure for operators? What is the stack? If you think about it, for that other picture that I just shared to be true, we start off at the interconnect layer. We need to be able to be deeply interconnected with the carrier. We have today connections, more than 20,000 peering points established, 500 different carriers around the globe. We have more than 200 carriers that direct connect their private networks directly into the Azure environment, giving that straight mobile to cloud and end user to cloud experience. We have also extended those capabilities with our Azure global offering, allowing people to further their reach. That gives us just the ability to be connected into the cloud so that you can't do cloud managed and cloud connected, the last picture I showed you, without that connectivity. And that gives us the ability to offer that to the operators. Then we put on top of that a form factor that's applicable, whether I talked about it earlier, we'll deliver something at the edge of the cloud, the edge of the network, at the edge of the enterprise. That makes sure that we have the cloud where you need it, when you need it, to to manage the different functions depending on which ones, as we talked about in that previous picture, you need. Then we place on top of that the ability to manage the network itself, whether that be your voice and your packet core or your radio access layer, software-based components, either first-party solutions delivered by Microsoft with our firmware, our Metaswitch acquisition, or third-party. We're very pleased to see folks like Mavenir and Druid, our friends at Nokia, and others who are placing their software packages to run with Azure at the edge. So whatever makes sense to the operator and whatever makes sense both from a brownfield and a greenfield perspective, we support that layer. We then expose that as a series of APIs upwards. We expose that programmable network up through our stack of value-added services. So whether it be through our mixed reality offerings like HoloLens, up through connections into Teams or Azure Communication Services, the APIs we expose outwards, up through IoT Central or IoT Hub, or up through our gaming assets, we essentially create the APIs off the programmable network and expose those to both Microsoft parties, helping you monetize your 5G investments, or up to our large developer ecosystem, who the Microsoft partners that build the various software applications that work on Azure are all exposed up that layer, and then we expose those APIs so they can take advantage of the programmable network. So as you're building in network slicing and programmable network features within your network, we're not just exposing those for our internal use, we're also giving them back into Microsoft's large developer ecosystem carried through our DevOps tools to help you monetize that network. And really where we see this being different is this is a truly carrier-grade cloud. We have the telco DNA. We've made the acquisition of the people and capabilities to have folks that have built telco applications, telco workloads for years. We couple that with the hybrid cloud strategy from Microsoft, bring on our IoT assets and add in the AI and ML capabilities we've got, and we're truly forming the basis for the next generation of communications networks to be created. The other thing I get a lot of questions about is, okay, that's awesome, but we need, 5G is great, but we want to monetize that next level up, and that's where a lot of the excitement is. And this is really what I'll say is not just for the operators, but for the customers of the operator, be they retailers, consumers, retail accounts, consumers, large enterprise or government. There's a vast number of sort of what I'll call smart connected scenarios that are out there right now. We're seeing massive interest in this, whether it be from in the vehicular space for V2I and V2X type applications where you're having the vehicles communicate with the infrastructure, whether that's for updating the onboard services and capabilities or the car itself, or communicating with the infrastructure to make the whole in-car driving experience more safer. We're seeing an explosion on the manufacturing side. This is an industry I thought would take a little bit longer to take off, but really what we're seeing is a huge amount of interest in the use of intelligent video for things like high-value asset tracking, for workplace safety, for production and distribution quality assurance purposes. In addition, we're just seeing a lot more interest in condition-based monitoring overall and private networks in large industrial facilities that maybe aren't as suitable for Wi-Fi. We're seeing a lot of interest in that field. Similarly, we're seeing in the agricultural space, just in remote locations, whether it be oil rigs, farms, mining facilities, defense installations, public sector installations, we're just seeing a large interest in being able to take a combination of private networking, just like you have very little probably wired up in your home still. A lot of these installations no longer want to have wired facilities. They want to have an 100% wireless experience. They're large. They've got things that are outdoor and moving. So therefore, they need one sort of common connection and control plane, which is offered by cellular connectivity, connected with private compute, often in places they don't have sufficient backhaul to go all the way to the cloud for everything. So an idea that you have some localized processing to manage some of the data and processing that you need to have access to instantly versus that processing which is done remotely. All of that's of interest and exciting here. And so that's really where we see a lot of stuff taking off. In fact, we're seeing that take place on a platform, and I'll describe as we do that, a little bit of how we see that happening. I've got the sort of an example of where we take a Azure Private Edge Zone, which is essentially our single tenant box at the edge of the network, which we can then bring together a combination through Azure Virtual Network Manager, say the SD-WAN and the firewall you need for the backhaul, connected to the virtual EPC and the vRAN solution you need to provide the connection out to the user community, all managed on a single box as a managed service by the provider, whether that be a carrier or a managed service provider. And then we let them have access on the enterprise side to a rich catalog of Microsoft applications. So as a result, you can get shop in a box, dock in a box, farm in a box, whatever sort of mix and match of IoT capabilities you want, all delivered on one platform as a managed service to the customer. The key thing is this is Microsoft's platform offered through the operator of the managed service community. And for this is why so much of the work being done by the MEF in terms of how they bring that end-to-end experience, how they bring that secure end-to-end experience together in a multi-vendor, multi-operator environment is so important to us, because without the basic connectivity to do all this stuff, all the cool scenarios I just talked about simply aren't possible if the plumbing doesn't work, right? These are the kind of things that nobody wants to think about, but the minute they don't work, you know it, because everything shuts down. And hence Microsoft's interest in the MEF, because a lot of what they're doing provides the enabling technology for us to harness all this cool stuff on top of it. And I'll leave off with an example that I think is probably even more relevant to MEF, where we were able to co-create a service with an operator, with our friends at Etisalat, who are today offering to their small business customers a clean pipes initiative, where they are offering internet, high bandwidth internet connectivity through to their small business customers, and then using a Palo Alto or an Fortinet-based appliance to offer firewall and security services in the cloud to make sure that's a clean pipe solution. This fits in beautifully with the MEF architecture that Pascal and the team are working on to provide end-to-end SASE-like services to the customer. And the more, today we hand-strung this integration pre some of the existing MEF standards coming out, but in the future we look forward to being able to give the mix and match capabilities for any one of the array of vendors, SD-WAN and firewall and security vendors, ease of integration into this, because with the work that we're doing with the MEF, with the LSO and Sonata, the easier it gets for the operator to implement this with the vendor of their choice and expand it out to more and more services. So we're really looking forward and very supportive of the work the MEF is doing in this space to make these services more accessible and easier to use by the operators. So I hope that gave you a pretty good feel for where Microsoft is going in this space. I know I threw a lot in a very short period of time, but as I said, you can see how all the work that we're doing in terms of simplifying and automating operations for the operator, combined with putting together a complex layer of services to enable, on top of a programmable network, takes the type of services and takes the type of frameworks and definitions that are being done in the MEF. And as a result, Microsoft's incredibly honored and excited to be part of the MEF organization, and look forward to seeing what's coming out. Thanks for the great work, guys, and hopefully that was helpful today in giving a perspective of how we see the market evolving. Thanks very much and have a great day.
Good to hear from a critical industry player like Microsoft, and great to see the strategic linkages to MEF work. Thank you, Sean, for presenting a clear overview of Azure for operators. Now that we've seen things from the service provider and cloud provider point of view, it's time to push the edge and allow our analysts to weigh in. Stan Hubbard, Senior Director of Research and Analyst Relations, MEF's in-house analyst, recently conducted an interview with Grant Lenahan, partner and principal analyst with Appledore Research. Let's listen in.
Welcome, Grant. It's a pleasure to have you join me today.
Well, thanks so much for having me here, Stan. Looking forward to the discussion.
Great. A couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with the board of MEF, a number of executives on the board, and have a roundtable discussion, looking at how the industry is evolving to address the enterprise digital transformation requirements. And, I think what we're seeing with that, with the board members, is there's a common understanding that enterprises are seeking an on-demand, secure, high-performance, low-latency experience when they're accessing their applications in the cloud. And that's regardless of whether that's in a hybrid, distributed, or multi-cloud environment. And we had a couple of executives that shared their thoughts. Sean Hackle from Microsoft, Frank Morales from Orange Business Services, and they also agreed with others that we need to see closer collaboration between the hyperscalers and the service providers to really address the enterprise requirements going forward. Because the enterprises want a more seamless experience, they want to have a more resilient experience. And so with that as a backdrop, Grant, what do you see as some of the near-term opportunities for collaboration to deliver value to the enterprises?
Let's actually talk a little bit about not just the near term, but where we're going in the slightly longer term. And that's partly because there's a lot of, I think, what we can all maybe agree to as hype out there. And I'd like to debunk a little bit of the hype with the idea that just because you could do something technically doesn't mean you should. And yet I also don't want to cast a negative picture at all, because I think a lot of those use cases are going to be real in the slightly longer term. It's really a matter of timing. The other thing is we did a huge amount of research on this between over, let's say, the past 18 to 20 months. And one of the things that, I think I went in with some of the hype giving me a negative reaction. And the more I talked to enterprises, the more I talked to industrial automation systems integrators, the more I became positive on the opportunities. I just became positive on very slightly different opportunities. And, I'd like to talk a little bit about those. Because when you look at some of the ones that get all the coverage in the press, it's things like self-driving cars, right? And the question is, well, do you really need that? Could you use low latency across the globe for that? Yeah, it could probably be helpful. Do you need it? Well, no. And more than that, you've got issues when the cost of a mistake is, say, crumpled metal or injury. Do you want to take the risk of, reliability, perfect coverage, all of those sorts of things, and even cost? And this came to a head, I thought, in a nice public way when there was I think it was a Twitter debate or fight between Marcus Weldon of Bell Labs and Elon Musk, who probably needs no introduction, nor does Marcus, on that point, where Marcus was really arguing the art of the possible, and Elon was saying, yeah, we don't need that now, and by the way, we're not going to suffer the cost or the risks. And when we did our research, what we found is there are a lot of things happening today. But you need to think about the sort of boring things that make business run. Logistics and supply chain, optimization of equipment, ports and rail yards for inventory where Wi-Fi simply doesn't cut it, where, for example, giant cranes in a port cast huge radio shadows, right? And you, at the very least, need something like LTE, if not 5G. Vision systems for manufacturing. We've seen some very interesting announcements from major manufacturers in the Far East working with Microsoft and some radio manufacturers about how they are using MEC and private 5G to allow for inspections that really had to be done by human beings in the past and didn't scale very well. So there are a lot of use cases. There's money to be made. One of the things that you may take out of what I was just saying is lots and lots of those use cases sound very much like private networks. And in fact, most of them are private networks. So I think another thing that we need to get out of our head is that these use cases are going to be on the public 5G network, the same one that we use and my new iPhone will work on. The other thing we need to get out of our head, I believe, is that the service providers by default will be the suppliers of all of this business. They may be very good managed services providers. They may own critical spectrum. They may have a great role to play. But I believe they need to fit into an ecosystem defined by the industrial automation giants, the Rockwells, the Bosches of the world, and the specialty ones that I don't know in oil and gas and rail yards. So it was actually really fascinating to go through this research, go in maybe thinking I was going to de-hype things and realizing I was just going to get educated in what reality actually looked like.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think there are lots of opportunities out there, and one of the areas I think we can learn about the emerging opportunities is in things like proof of concepts, right? MEF has a proof of concept program, MEF 3.0 proof of concepts, and we look at quite a few of these new use cases, related to automation and sort of this fourth industrial revolution type of opportunity. What would you say are some of the key challenges and opportunities for service providers to address in this era of the distributed enterprise, work from anywhere type of situation that we face now?
Sure. I think the first thing that brings up is the idea that we need to talk about the fact that there are many edges, right? And again, it's very, very sexy to talk about the mobile edge compute locations. And that will be a growing area, probably with the first workloads being the 5G network itself and some very, very time critical apps. But as we talked about earlier, probably those will be small initially and growing over more of the medium term. But there are also other edges. There are regional edges, and there is something that I call the enterprise edge. You can think of the enterprise edge as kind of what used to be your service or edge or premises router in enterprise locations. And the old model of an enterprise, driven as much by technological necessity as desire, was a few large buildings, office buildings, factories, whatever, and data centers in them. And as I like to say, you locked your data in the basement in the data center and built a ring fence of firewalls and remote access servers around them. And you had a relatively small number of high capacity static links. And, you punched an occasional hole in the firewall for outsiders. That's being totally changed, right? And we have work from home. We have businesses that are distributed and global. We have more smaller branch offices. We have everything from retail to, local specialists needing to access and collaborate on data. We have apps now moving to public cloud. We have a lot of apps being provided as a service. And in fact, again, if I go back and show my age, 15 years ago, people were talking about things like mashups in the internet. And Bob Lucky had his smart alarm clock where it was going to check your calendar and check the weather and get you up at the right time to make it to work and pick up the coffee that you want. And we're really seeing the idea of mashups now. And much of this is being enabled by public cloud, edge cloud, apps that are run by third-party specialists and integrators on behalf of industry verticals. And some of the tools that are really becoming extremely demanded are SD-WAN and things like it, bandwidth on demand, the ability to rearrange your network, the ability for it to include public cloud, the ability for it to recombine as your dynamic supply chain changes. Think about Boeing. They build a plane with suppliers all over the world and they change models and the supply chain changes, right? So not only is it everywhere, but it's changing. Maybe it's a couple of years if you're building planes. Maybe it's a couple of months if you're doing something else. And, one of the things is that I believe the idea of security and cloud and transport are becoming inseparable and must become inseparable. We've been doing some research also in security, which is very interesting because we did not view ourselves at Appledore as security experts. And yet we saw a lot of the aspects of security needing what's happening in the broader cloud native network in terms of automation and models and machines doing things for consistent configuration. And this leads to things that MEF is doing that the minute I saw them, I said, that's the right idea. And one of them is the SASE service. Now, I don't know nearly as much about it as you do, but I'll give you my layman's view that you believe SASE is not a security thing. It is a component of an end-to-end service that has locations or multiple locations and quality of service guarantees and security guarantees, and they may be both user and application dependent. And so I think in putting that together and also dealing with some of the LSA APIs that are needed to make all of this happen, the MEF is going down some of the right paths. And that's not just an advertisement for you and your work. I think that's a very practical reality that the MEF has let real use cases drive it rather than pie-in-the-sky visions. And that's a very, very good thing.
Yeah. So, one of the things I like to highlight for people that are tracking MEF and what we're doing is, we don't just have standards, we don't just have certification programs, but we have executives at some of the leading service and technology companies really aligning around that vision of on-demand services that are orchestrated across automated and interconnected networks and that run all the way from the enterprise end user across the service providers to the cloud. And so that's been a really, really powerful story to take to the market. Going back to the discussion I had with with some of the service providers, there was quite a bit of talk about this blurring of the lines between cloud providers and service providers over the next 5 years or so. As the two communities evolve towards more of an automated platform that combines network, cloud, and security. So how do you expect the cloud and communications providers to evolve, say over that similar time period, maybe 4 to 5 years? What do you expect there?
Well, I think we're beginning to see that work itself out in the marketplace right now. If you get back to the idea of dynamic networks, some of those locations are going to be public cloud providers. Many of those applications are going to be run by public cloud providers. Even some of the as a service are going to be provided by the big public cloud giants. And I believe that the service providers, the network service providers, our traditional employers and clients and such, I think they need to rethink their idea of what their future expansion opportunities and applications are, and think less of I'm going to provide some cool piece of software like Gmail or YouTube, and think more about how they are going to make this merging of many, many third-party components, the mashup, seamless. And a lot of that means having APIs to let lots of third parties integrate in so that you can orchestrate from headquarters to branch to public cloud to partner seamlessly and securely. I mean, I thought Lumen, they almost made me laugh, and yet it was so true. I loved it when they said that orchestration is their secret sauce. That's only something a telecom nerd would love, and yet it was absolutely true, and it told me they were thinking along the right lines. And that takes me to rethinking how we view network as a service. I think in the simplest case, it's a sales and operational model, right? You put up network that you can buy as a service, just like you can buy software as a service. But there's so much more, because once you abstract things and make them intent-driven and orderable behind an API, you've got a model for making your own internal operations, your own internal ability to create new products and services far more efficient and low cost, at lower maintenance, nice separation of concerns, all those things that software people talk about. And the other thing it does is it causes you to think about services not as technology, but through the eyes of your customer. So if you think about customer focus, lower cost, and the agility your customers want all rolled into one technology, if only you could implement it, that to me is a pretty powerful and compelling argument, which is why I actually like to, on purpose, change the term to everything as a service, not network as a service.
Yeah. You touched on a lot of really important points there, and I'll just go back to this idea of the orchestration. You mentioned Lumen, and one of the things I've been involved in here recently over the last several months is looking at the LSO, the evolution of the LSO Sonata market opportunity, right? LSO Sonata API is being used to orchestrate inter-provider services. And, we've got, more than 24 service providers already, that we've engaged with that are looking at, well, either have LSO Sonata APIs in production or intending to implement them in production. We're expanding the discussions with a number of additional service providers. But what we're seeing is they're really embracing the APIs to address this customer experience, to accelerate the service rollout, to build a longer lasting relationship with a customer who can come back and more easily order services from them. If you're a seller, and if you're a buyer, if you're on the buyer side, there's some interesting advantages there. You can actually be more engaged in strategic planning, knowing that your services could be delivered much more rapidly than say the 30, 60, 90 days of the past. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, there. But that leads me to another question for you. You know, when you look at the service providers out there, there are hundreds and hundreds of service providers around the world that are not quite ready for this on-demand world, right? They may not have updated their BSS and OSS systems to be able to actually turn and interface with other partners, right? They have to go through this modernization process internally. You think about this, the transformation that has to take place. It has to be a strategy. It has to be a service portfolio. It has to be a network transformation, having the right technologies, and the focus around the APIs to make it all happen in a more automated way. And then finally, the professionals that are building out that next generation network. So what would your advice be for these companies as they think about, you know, moving along this journey towards that more automated future, the on-demand services, the closer collaboration with the cloud providers?
Well, I think you've already touched on a number of the important points right in the question, that it is a journey, right? That automation and simple interfacing are going to be a couple of the key attributes of it. And the first thing is, yes, not everyone is, you know, China Telecom or Verizon or AT&T or Deutsche or BT or any of the giants. But I believe every operator has a play. They may have a local or regional play. They may have a play as the regional partner of one of the giants serving pan-global companies, right? Because, you know, AT&T doesn't have loops in Botswana, right? So they need to work with companies there, and that's where things like Sonata APIs become so useful. But I believe everyone has a play, first of all, and the play will be targeted to, you know, where you are, the characteristics of business where you are, and frankly, being local is huge in understanding that, because one size doesn't fit all, right? But I would say that that is not a leave to be complacent. I think companies have to evolve or be marginalized. And I'm saying marginalized, not evolve or be dead, right? Because service providers, I do think, need to remember and always have chin up that you have some fantastic assets. In some cases, a legal license, right? But in other cases, you own spectrum, you own right-of-way, you have very, very difficult embedded plant with towers and concrete and buried facilities that, you know, Google tried getting into the fiber business and found out this concrete and ditch witch stuff was hard, right? So keep that in mind and start asking, how do I build over time, as you said, right? It's not going to happen overnight. Operations that are agile for your customer and efficient for you, right? It sounds boring, but in many ways we can view it in a very sexy light, right? Because the fundamentals of really efficient operation come out of control theory, and control theory comes out of rocket science. So we can all be rocket scientists. And the reason I bring that up is everyone's scared of what sound like scary new technologies. And yet if you look at control theory and you look at things as old as good old negative feedback loops, they actually lift an entire layer of complexity and pre-engineering off of projects and allow things to be far less maintenance intensive, far less code intensive. If you just keep it simple, you get something that works and you don't need to anticipate everything that's coming down the line. And that sort of brings me to, so how do you get there incrementally? And, you know, you mentioned it's going to take time, it's going to take years, and it will. Well, what's really causing this change, right, is not that we suddenly got smart on operation systems. It's that the new technology, cloud technology, SDN technology, the incredibly flexible radio technology gives us knobs to twiddle that we've never had before. It wasn't possible to set things up and tear them down. To move a network function from here to there, that took wrenches and trucks and guys and gals that knew what they were doing. Now it can be done with a script. So let your operations follow your technology modernization. Focus on a good technology-specific domain manager for each domain as you modernize it. Then bring them together with a federated end-to-end orchestration and surveillance layer. And I like to say rent to own, right? Where you are paying a little bit every year as you modernize your network. But you said it at the very beginning, you have to have that long-term goal. You have to have the architecture so that everything's built consistently, and each dollar you invest is not wasted and respent later, but getting you one step closer to where you're going. And again, I'll emphasize that if you build things with APIs, both TM Forum APIs and the API specifics that are being defined by the MEF in many, many areas, if you think of end-to-end services that have characteristics of transport and security and on-demand, and very practical things like ELAN and ELINE and automation of those, you're slowly going to build your way there. And that has to, back to the comment of how's it going to work out between the public cloud and the telcos, the more cost-effective and labor-effective and therefore well-priced you are, the greater your role in any ecosystem is going to be. So get the fundamentals right, and I believe the profits and the margins and the place in the ecosystem will follow. And it's something we preach.
Yeah, well said, Grant. Lots of great advice there for the service providers. I think, in addition to the technology being available, we also have this sort of forced acceleration of the digital transformation, right, created by the whole COVID situation, right? Everybody having to condense their digital transformation into months instead of years. But I wanted to get sort of turn to like the enterprise side of things. What advice would you give for an enterprise as they're looking for service providers who can help them on their journey? What are the top things that they should consider? Well, we talked about things like automation and the shift towards on-demand services, many not quite there, but what would you say the enterprises really should look for in their service provider partners?
Well, I think they need to recognize that it's a journey for both them and for the service providers. So I believe a service provider needs to be honest about the fact that they're at a given point in time, but have a very clear plan as to where they're going. And that plan has to include portal-driven, right? Because everyone wants the ability to order and change things and monitor things cheaply and directly. It has to be relatively on demand. It's got to be flexible so that as you change from one partner to another, one supplier of cloud to another, and stitch things together, it is very likely to be included. So I would ask questions like, explain to me how you're going to orchestrate security end-to-end across me and my partners. And by the way, tell me how new technologies and new partners get added. If it's, we have a contract group that may contact them someday and come up with an 80-page contract, that's not a great answer. It's, we have an API and standard T's and C's, and you can onboard yourself and put your service in our catalog. That's the company I want to talk to, because I don't know what my business is going to look like in 3 years. But I know that I need you to help me connect it, right? So I think it's looking for flexibility and looking for an honest assessment of where they are today and how they're going to get where they need to be in a few years.
Very good. I really appreciate your balanced answers here. The comment I think of earlier where you talked about a service provider, they can basically embrace or become marginalized this future as opposed to dying off. But you offer the same type of balanced thinking when it comes to the enterprises as they go out and engage with their service provider partners. So really appreciate that, Grant. And really enjoyed the conversation with you. Thanks a lot.
I enjoyed this very much, Dan. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And if I can just get one comment in on what you said, I remember about 15 years ago, the idea was the internet was going to kill the telecom providers. And as Mark Twain said, the reports of their death have been greatly exaggerated. So yeah. I think they will overcome this. Just embrace it rather than defend against it.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Stan, thanks for that awesome interview. And Grant, thanks for providing additional insights to our discussion today. A very nice finish to the first part of the show, and segue into the break. Let's take 3 minutes to grab some refreshments and meet right back here for an update from MEF CTO Pascal Menezes on how service providers and hyperscalers evolve their managed offerings to deliver on a better together E2E experience.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I couldn't even wait for a break. There's a lot of peanut butter on this sandwich. Way too much peanut butter and not enough jelly.
I don't know what happened. I think the ratio is off. I don't know. Network slicing.
The internet is awesome, but what happens when your applications stall? That's why service providers built private, high-speed networks. The pinnacle of these networks uses MEF 3.0 standardized underlay connectivity services. Carrier Ethernet services alone are now a $60+ billion market. Along with MEF 3.0 optical transport and IP services, providers have technology-agnostic services with great flexibility. We know not all businesses live on a single network. Providers must interconnect. MEF 3.0 services make that easier. Yet enterprises also need dynamic, responsive services with frictionless inter-provider connectivity. MEF LSO APIs address this need, enabling providers to automate and orchestrate both on-net and off-net. What about mission-critical apps? These apps require flexible, application-centric, policy-driven network services that leverage smart underlay connectivity services like Carrier Ethernet. This is the role of MEF 3.0 SD-WAN services, an overlay service that delivers the policy-based, application-centric solution enterprises need while enabling providers to deliver additional value-added digital services like security, mixed reality, and Internet of Things. Operating transparently over MEF underlay services, even over broadband internet, MEF 3.0 SD-WAN services use our LSO APIs to harmoniously automate and orchestrate overlay plus underlay, both within and between providers. This is the story of underlays and overlays and how digital enterprises become free to grow. This is the story of MEF 3.0.
Enterprises have increasingly complex connectivity and security requirements for their digital transformation journey. They cannot wait months to turn up new services from their providers. They need them right away and around the globe. Adding to the complexity, no single company can provide all services from their own inventory, so they must work with a set of partners. Their inter-provider commercial and business transactions, like ordering and billing, are mostly manual, error-prone, and take weeks for service delivery. So how do digital service providers create a frictionless experience and turn up new high-value digital services in seconds, not months? MEF-LSO, or Lifecycle Service Orchestration, APIs, offer a standardized way to enable end-to-end automation and orchestration of digital services across multiple providers and direct to the enterprise. By automating functions like quoting, ordering, inventory, and billing, both service providers and the enterprise can realize a faster path to services. Starting with MEF 3.0 carrier Ethernet services, and eventually for other services such as Internet Access, SD-WAN, and SASE, MEF's Sonata APIs drive frictionless inter-provider business and commercial interactions. The result? Faster service delivery for off-net subscriber locations. MEF's LSO Cantata APIs address the enterprise customer-to-business layer of interactions, like ordering and inventory, with the service provider. When combined with Sonata, Cantata APIs provide full end-to-end service automation across multiple providers in a supply chain.
To drive that scale, one needs automation, and orchestration is really the key that drives automation for these services to be delivered across different networks.
Interconnect, automate, operate, accelerate, because those are the keys. If we're able to interconnect using guidelines that MEF has put forward, but if we're able to automate, we'll be able to operate in a much more accelerated fashion.
Find out how MEF LSO commercial and business APIs can help your organization monetize digital services revenue faster at mef.net/MEF-APIS.
Welcome back to MEF Infinite Edge. Oh, come on. Seriously? These producers. Unbelievable. All right, let's recap, shall we? Today we're talking about clouds and collaboration and delving into the network transformation required for delivering a unified customer experience. Executives from Orange Business Services and Microsoft joined us at the top of the show, providing the service and cloud provider angle, followed by market insights from today's featured analyst. But how is MEF facilitating collaboration to meet evolving enterprise needs through its work on standardized APIs and services? For that, we join MEF CTO Pascal Menezes for an overview of the groundbreaking work and MEF projects completed, underway, and a brief look at the road ahead.
Hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode on clouds and collaboration, delivering a unified customer experience. I gotta say, these episodes in the Infinite Edge series have been absolutely outstanding, incredible speakers, incredible content. And today I'm gonna cover the MEF perspective on exactly this cloud and collaboration and what's going on and how is MEF really working in this area. I wanna start with what is the impetus that's driving all this change that we're seeing in networking and the digital landscapes and so on, and really it's digital transformation. It's estimated to be $11.5 trillion and continues to grow massively. And with that, network transformation is the underpinning that glues all of this. And MEF is really being involved in enabling our members to get on that journey of network transformation. And it's very, very critical because network transformation is not just about moving IT to the cloud. It's also about a whole new landscape of digital applications emerging that is attaching to the clouds, and the clouds are distributing to the edges. And with that, we see use cases like smart glasses, AR, VR. It's going to be very, very critical in this new digital world, the digital economy. Also, IoT and video surveillance and all the analytics that has to go into that video will be done processed from the edge. Also, so robotics will be all over in smart manufacturing, and they will be driven by AI, ML at the edge. And finally, distributed applications will be everywhere. And these distributed applications will use containers, use microservices. The network itself will be a big compute platform, and networks have to perform. And with this, the idea of edge computing becomes very, very critical, because really edge computing and networks will become a synergy and very synergetic in how they will work together. And no more will networks just be plumbing and pipes, but networks will also have to guarantee and assure of delivery performance of applications in a distributed way. They'll also have to make sure those networks are secure. So networks will be very secure. And we've seen that with SASE and XDR emerging and so on. And finally, edge compute will be the norm in the network, on the path of the journey of the packets from source to destination. They will hit a set of compute nodes, and that will be all part of the networks. And really, in this digital transformation, edge computing plays a very critical role. But edge computing, not just by the service providers delivering network functions virtualized in a distributed way at the edges, but also bringing with that clouds and the collaboration of hyperscalers, and bringing that cloud hyperscaler IT new digital transformation processes into those edges. And we're seeing today a lot of announcements by many, many service providers with hyperscalers, how they're going in a better together story into the market and into the enterprises, and enabling that digital transformational journey for the enterprise. So this is a very critical area and a critical time where hyperscalers and service providers are teaming together, bringing their services together in the enterprise as a managed offering. And you heard that both from Frank and you heard that from Sean, great keynotes about what is really happening in this area. So let me continue on this journey on what really will be very critical. Now, it's not just going better together with the hyperscaler and the service provider. It's also that the service provider is the managed service provider for not only the network and the security aspects and SD-WAN and SASE and the transports and the 5G and all of those infrastructure pieces, but also the enterprise is riddled with complexity in the cloud. The cloud itself has many regions, and now as the cloud distributes to the edges, they will have compute there, and they will have IaaS, and they will have platform as a service and SaaS applications, and all of that has to be managed. And this is why it's a critical time that the service providers are really now stepping up to not only enabling that customer experience for networking, but also networking in the cloud or managing the cloud resources, for example, the VPCs and VNets, and how they're distributed and how they'll have to interconnect to each other, and the load balancer and the gateways that are in those cloud kind of complexities all have to be put together for that cloud experience at the edge, and for that subscriber to have that experience that's a service provider that can manage all of those assets in that digital transformation journey of the enterprise. So this is really, really important area. Now, what we see is really the service providers are really becoming digital service providers. So what do I mean by a digital service provider? I've said this for a number of years, that many, many service providers have to be part of this digital economy, this digital transformational journey. And we're seeing a lot of our members step up to doing that. And this is very, very critical. And really, a digital service provider, by definition, means that it's not only a programmable kind of network with SDN and virtualized with resources, but edge compute plays a very critical role. And with edge compute, as I talked about, there's a whole ecosystem of partners, as you see on this diagram on to the right, that these partners are interconnected. And this digital service provider not only has transformed the networks to be programmable and virtualized, but also at the edges enable compute, and automation becomes a very critical aspect. And through that automation, the experience has to be that through a single portal, the subscriber gets to be able to get visibility and control of what they want to do with that, the network and all the cloud resources and all the partner ecosystems, and or also use an API or a set of APIs, automation APIs, if they are also automated inside the enterprise also. So this is all part of a digital service provider's journey. Now, MEF has been playing a very critical role in this automation landscape, and we've been working on this area of the east-west automation in this digital service providers ecosystem journey, as digital service providers have to partner with hyperscalers and all kinds of cloud providers, other wholesale ecosystem partners. We've been working on this east-west automation APIs because it enables this ecosystem to plug together in a seamless way and enable that customer experience to be frictionless. And MEF has been working on Sonata and Interlude, Sonata being the commercial aspects of buying and selling and all the commercial transactions involved with that. But also Interlude is the operational aspects, all the service OEM, fault management, performance management, the ability to provision the services, all that is really part of Interlude. So both Sonata and Interlude play very critical roles. And as you can see in our MEF-55 architecture, lifecycle service orchestration architecture, that is Sonata and Interlude are the east-west kind of reference points where all the APIs live in that automation journey, as I talked about. Now, let's just walk through, what is going on in this cloud and this service provider collaboration. As you know, for years, we've been seeing how every service provider is now enabled on-ramps to all the hyperscalers. And we're seeing that as being very, very important to any kind of service any service provider offers into the enterprise is a direct connection to the cloud and not having to use the internet. And you can see today, you see AWS having, direct connect and Azure having express route. And with that, you can see that the on-ramps are very, very fat, big pipes, 10 to 100 gigabits of capacities. And these enterprises have the on-ramps to all their clouds of their choices. And that's been a very kind of journey that's been around for years, and it's been a great journey. But what we're also seeing is that now, as service providers put their edges and enable those edges with compute and put services of SD-WAN and SASE and all these kind of cloud services at the edge that they're delivering on their own, they're also partnering with hyperscalers and cloud providers to also extend their footprint globally. So let's imagine a service provider, digital service provider, has a retail offering around the world. How can that digital service provider do that when they don't have a footprint around the world? They don't have edges around the world. Well, in this example, what I'm showing is really simple. They can attach to a hyperscaler footprint that is global in nature and has IaaS infrastructure, compute services around in regions and also in specific cities as they distribute their cloud to the edges. And these digital service providers can instantiate their SASE services or their SD-WAN services on those IaaS infrastructures and basically use that express route, that direct connect on-ramps between their backbones, the digital service provider backbones and all their assets, and now extend that into the hyperscaler backbone and all the assets of their IaaS infrastructures. Now, to do that, we're seeing the hyperscalers say, hey, Mr. Digital Service Provider, use my APIs for automation so that you can manage all those assets and do that. So that's been a great model of how the collaboration is continuing to evolve. But we also see another way that is actually being realized is the idea that these inter-providers, this ecosystem of cloud providers and all these very wholesale providers that provide service to the digital service provider for the retail operation really does this with Sonata. Now, Sonata and Interlude, as I talked about, is not only enabling the ability to connect this ecosystem from an automation point of view, from both commercial transactions and from operational automation. But think about now, if, for example, an enterprise wants to find edge compute across that retail digital service provider globally, how does that digital service provider provide that edge compute? But it can only do that with all its partners in that retail wholesale model we know from carrier Ethernet and so on. But now we extend that wholesale retail relationship into edge compute. And so now we see the idea that a retail digital service provider can go out and offer a global edge computing service and yet use our Sonata and Interlude APIs to find out for a given address around the world who's got edge compute for this kind of resources that's needed from the enterprise and get a quote and order it and provision it and then make sure it's running right with service OEM and performance and fault management and all the trouble ticketing and all that automation that has to be done. So this is kind of where MEF is really playing a critical role. It's not just the connectivity of that underlay, connecting all that automation with big pipes, but it's also enabling this idea that, we'll have application performance of SD-WAN and SASE and security, but also edge compute anywhere in the world where enterprise wants to realize their digital transformational journey into those edges anywhere in the world. They can do that with that whole ecosystem of partners connected. So really, MEF has been working on the East-West APIs, not only in this wholesale retail relationship, but also enterprises, these multinationals, are also getting on the automation journey. And with that automation journey, they also want APIs that they can consume and that they can be able to use a set of APIs that they can look at, as I talked about edge computing or SD-WAN or bandwidth or whatever they might want to buy. They want to be able to buy it from an automation set of APIs and basically go ahead and use that. And we've been working on Cantata, which is the Sonata interlude facing the enterprise, a buy-only model, and that is facing the enterprise. And we call that Sonata and Allegro. And so with that, you stay tuned as we deliver a lot more great innovation through our membership and through our MEF forum. So with that, I want to thank you for taking this time. And it's been a really great episode. And I really look forward to the future episodes on this Infinite Edge series. With that, take care and have a great day.
All right, should we recap? Nah, I think you got it. Hey, thanks, Pascal. Lots of important work being done by MEF. Collaboration and automation require standards and APIs, and it's clear that's where MEF comes in. Good stuff. For our final look at today's topic, we're taking a deep dive with experts from PCCW Global and Neustar speaking about functionality to enhance the customer's experience in a digital world. Here's what they had to say. Okay, we are delighted to have here with us Devesh Gupta, VP New Technology and Sales Operations with PCCW Global, and John Denemark, Senior Vice President and General Manager, Carrier Provisioning with Neustar. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here and for taking the time to chat. Let's start off with some introductions. Why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and your role within your organization. Devesh, let's start with you and then go to John.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is Devesh Gupta, and I'm the VP for New Technologies and Sales Operations at PCCW Global. My role involves automation of managed services and also API development for our carrier partners. And at MEF, I'm the co-chair for the Test and Certification Committee. PCCW Global is a international carrier and service provider. We provide all the flavors of connectivity, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, and value-added services into security and SD-WAN. Thank you.
Hi, Devesh and Jeff, and hi, everyone. My name is John Denemark. I'm a Senior Vice President and General Manager at Neustar. I run the carrier provisioning business, which is part of our communication solutions suite of services, and we're focused on the communications market. We provide order management services to our carrier customers. We provide simplified and automated solutions to help modernize those processes for our customers.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you both for being here with us today. Devesh, let's start off with you here. First question. With business-critical applications moving to cloud and employees working from remote or home locations due to the pandemic, enterprises expect global access to on-demand ICT services, including cloud resources, storage, compute, and networking resources, Ethernet, and internet access. How are service providers addressing these requirements for a unified digital experience?
Great question, Jeff, and I agree with you. Enterprises are increasingly accessing all their applications from the cloud, be it public or private or hybrid clouds. And it's on the ICT service providers. I think the demand is for being able to provide on-demand connectivity to these clouds, which can be used in an automated fashion. much like the service providers or the enterprises use cloud resources today, be it compute or storage or any other value-added services. So where does this put service providers in the frame? They're actually undergoing digital transformation. Most of the service providers that we know globally are working on automating their existing legacy telecom services in order to meet the challenges that have been posed by the ongoing pandemic and, like I said, the movement of all these applications in the cloud and people working remotely from home offices. So here at PCCW Global, I'd like to share some experience as to what we are doing to address that challenge. Our CEO has propagated the vision of us moving from a telecom company to becoming a technology-driven company. And it actually essentially means that in addition to what we're doing in terms of wholesale data and voice services, we're now increasingly offering on-demand services, which are connectivity services, access to public or private clouds. From manual service delivery into an automated mode of provision of these services, and then from manual settlements into automated settlements with other carriers. So how do we achieve that, or how any other carrier can achieve that? I would say that there are two key factors there. One very strategic resource is people resources for any carrier or any company around. And in order for us to be able to transform us digitally, you would need to adopt a common framework. Here at PCCW Global, we've adopted SAFE, which is an acronym for Scaled Agile Framework. It allows us to work on short 2-week sprints and 3-month program increments, which allow us to have all of our development staff who are actually coding or providing network automation to work hand in hand with our IP engineering team to be able to collaborate and then provide newer services in an automated fashion to the market. That's the first thing. The second is the technology itself has changed quite a lot from the past. Nowadays, you have software-defined networks that would help automate the actual provisioning of these networks, but also a widespread API economy is actually kind of fueling the digital world. What it does is you basically have smaller business processes, be it, for example, let's say a quote, a service provider is requesting for a particular location with a fellow provider and asking for how much does local access cost in a country. Things like that. These processes can be automated, and using an API, you can cut down carrier-to-carrier transaction time from weeks to months to literally a matter of minutes. So I would say those are the two key aspects, the people resources and also the technology that are fueling the digital transformation in the carrier world. And that kind of helps to address the challenges raised by the pandemic and also the requirement from the enterprise customer segments.
All right, a lot there. Thank you so much for that, Devesh. John, same question to you. Would love to hear your viewpoint on all this as well.
Sure, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm probably going to hit some of the same points as Devesh did, but maybe from a little bit of a different viewpoint. So from our perspective, COVID really put service providers to the test and highlighted just how dependent our society has become on connectivity. So fortunately, a lot of businesses were able to pretty much carry on as usual, which is quite amazing when you stop and think about it. And really a credit to the service providers that made it possible. Now, having said that, we do see a market that's changing. We've got SD-WAN and SASE that are new network overlay technologies that are giving enterprises and their employees flexible and secure ways to connect, whether it's down the street or at home or around the world. Plus, there's 5G, there's IoT, there's cloud infrastructure, which are all driving connectivity demand, enabling new advanced applications, and really reshaping what connectivity is used for and how it's being delivered. And so service providers are building out their networks and upgrading their systems and spending billions of dollars in the process in order to meet the demand for these new advanced applications. And in order to meet enterprise customer expectations, it means providing ubiquitous coverage for the applications that they depend on, no matter where they're located. We've seen this lead to a renewed interest and focus on ordering network access for many carriers, including on the wholesale level. And this is an area where Neustar has been focused, working with service providers to simplify and automate their ordering processes with modern API-based solutions. So some of the same points that Devesh made about adopting the SAFE framework and having tight integration between product and engineering and quick release cycles, which allows us to put product out quickly. That we're also doing that. But in addition, we have created in this area a new suite of services that is again modern API based that simplifies and automates what in many ways is today a very manual and time consuming and problem ridden process.
So, John, a lot of good news there. What shape would you say the industry is in when it comes to inter-carrier connectivity? Do you see any issues, potential red flags?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is we talk about the underlay network, the plumbing, really, that is powering all of these new services like SD-WAN and cloud computing. Whether it's MPLS or broadband internet, the connections need to be in place before these services work. And right now, this remains a huge bottleneck for operators, as I said just a little bit ago. So this is especially true when an enterprise customer falls outside of a carrier's network footprint. And it happens more often than you would think, because really even the largest service providers don't have network everywhere. They need to purchase network access from others to effectively serve their enterprise customers. So the buying and selling of network access among service providers involves flows of multiple billions of dollars in the US and around the world. And that wholesale ordering process is broken right now. It can take weeks or even months to complete an order. Service providers use these processes to order Ethernet or dark fiber or lit fiber, colos, cross connects. There's a number of different things, and increasingly they use wholesale buying processes to order broadband internet also, primarily as an enabling technology for SD-WAN. It's a great low-cost option for some services and applications because it's so much cheaper than traditional MPLS. But for operators, it's a real pain. There are zero ordering standards, which makes the whole buying process especially difficult and time-consuming. And we happen to know that there are account managers within service providers that steer their enterprise customers away from SD-WAN because it's so difficult to order broadband. And obviously that can have negative impacts on revenue and customer experience. So just a couple other things of why this is happening. So much of the problem stems from the fact that legacy systems are often difficult to adapt to next generation services like SD-WAN and SASE and broadband on demand. The wholesale ordering process definitely hasn't kept pace. It still relies on outdated and complicated standards, or no standards at all, actually. Emails and phone calls and spreadsheets and systems that don't talk to each other, and lots of swivel chair processes. So mistakes are common. Orders can fall through the cracks. And meanwhile, your enterprise customers are calling and complaining and asking, what's happening. So there's massive amounts of headcount that are focused on these issues, both on the buy side and on the sell side. From our perspective, it's a bit of a mess. So the point really that I'm getting to is that this area is ripe for modernization. Carriers that are expanding and modernizing their capabilities of the BSS and OSS, they can't help but look at the wholesale area as well, because it's such an important part of service delivery and such a source of delays and customer experience issues. And the way to fix this is to simplify and automate the process of shopping for and ordering inter-carrier services. We have seen this drive efficiencies in the delivery of services by shortening install intervals and reducing order fallout and inaccuracies. And Neustar has an automated solution in this case for both the buy side and the sell side of this equation that can plug into a carrier's OSS BSS stack and become the easy button for modernizing this part of their world.
All right, a lot of great points there, John. Thank you for that. Devesh, we're coming back to you now. You were recently appointed co-chair of the MEF Test and Certification Committee. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work being done under MEF in defining common industry standard LSO APIs that enable providers to seamlessly buy and sell services bilaterally?
Sure, Jeff. And I think I'll drill upon quite a lot of what John touched just now on the difficulty of having the carrier wholesale process automated, and the difficulty in the current processes where the inefficiencies actually take a lot of time for us to revert back to customer requirements. So here at MEF, there are multiple committees. The LSO committee actually is helping define standards exactly for those business processes. We call the MEF LSO, which stands for Lifecycle Orchestration. It kind of standardizes the business-to-business interface reference points. And it's defined under the MEF standard, MEF-55. The LSO standard actually takes each part of the lifecycle orchestration. So if you look at breaking it down, you start with an address validation where you have a customer's address and you're trying to request for a particular service at that address. So you validate and find out whether that's on a footprint of a carrier's network or not. And from there on, you have multiple steps there. You have, you check with the site, you check for the product ordering qualification, you check for how much would it cost, code, order, trouble ticketing, billing. So all of these aspects are covered under the MEF LSO portfolio. And the good part about this is because MEF is a consortium of all service providers and technology providers. These are the providers which are coming together and they're forming these standards. So, if there is a standard that's written for each step of these LSO business processes, they go through multiple, CFC call for comments, and then finally, when everyone approves them, they become a published standard. In the last couple of years, there's been a lot of work being done on automating and providing software development kits, SDKs, for exactly these processes. These are standard processes which are being developed under MEF, and the Git repositories hosts the SDKs which can be used by any of the carriers. They can come and use them, and then they can create common looking APIs which would help them to automate these business processes. So a lot of my work at the Test and Certification Committee is on taking this initiative further along from what the LSO committee has done. And we have two key things that we are actually working on in the behind the scenes, which are going to be brought to market in the later part of this year. The first one is an OIT platform, in short for operational and interop between multiple carriers. It would be like a sandbox where a carrier, buyer, and a seller pair can come. They can use these SDKs that are published by the MEF, and they can develop the APIs, integrate that, and connect with their backend OSS and BSS systems, and then interoperate and test to make sure that these work. The second initiative is a certification platform where after you've developed those APIs, you can actually test them against the MEF standard and get your APIs certified. So I feel that these would go in a long way in at least addressing that gap between automation and the processes that are happening manually today. And it would also touch upon reduction of cost, because what happens is a lot of these service operators who already have APIs which are providing automation for these processes, they might look a little different. So what happens is when you start working with multiple operators, and most of us do, so like for example, PCCW Global has more than 300 active partners with whom we would buy access or connectivity services in around the globe. If you were to automate using APIs which are looking different, each time you onboard a partner, it would take you that much more time because it's a repetitive process. But everyone starts using a standard, the amount of time it takes for you to bring a new partner on board for buying or for selling would drop drastically. So we're hoping that this work done at MEF would address that equation.
Great, thanks, Devesh. So in your experience, how would you say the ecosystem of players and service providers is evolving in this space?
Well, okay, so it's getting exciting day by day. We've seen emergence of several large global providers who are actually automating, at least in the context of the on-net, data center to data center connectivity. And it's being offered as a service which can be consumed via a web portal or through APIs. So what does that mean in terms of ecosystem of other cloud operators and connectivity providers and in data center operators? Well, I think with greater adoption of standardized APIs and standardized business processes, it would actually help the whole carrier community in general. So for example, take for instance a customer requesting for a cloud resource, let's say here in Hong Kong, and they're sitting somewhere in Europe. You would be able to get the connectivity and also the cloud service, all of that through a single portal. It could also be extended through an API if it is a wholesale customer. So I think with standard-based APIs and larger adoption of this automated business process, that would help fuel the ecosystem of buyers and sellers, and it would eventually help the enterprise customers, because now enterprise customers would have something equivalent of, let's say, an eBay, but in the telecom domain, you can source a lot of services through a common platform. These could be the newer security services, the SASE, the SD-WAN services, or edge cloud or edge compute, all of them offered through a single portal, which are running a connectivity underlay underneath. So it actually ensures also class of service or quality of service, and not just running on a public internet, which you cannot get on a public internet. So the combination of a network as a service plus application and security as a service on top would be something that we're looking at in this ecosystem.
Thanks, Devesh. John, back over to you now. Do you agree? Would love to hear your thoughts, perspective on really how you see the ecosystem here of players and service providers evolving.
Sure, and just a couple points on the MEF standards that Devesh was talking about. Actually, that's such important work that MEF and even the TM Forum have done over the years in driving and in creating and then helping to drive the adoption of new standards in this area. What we're doing at Neustar with our solutions is we're facilitating the adoption of those standards between our customers. So, for example, here in the United States, there are some legacy standards that have been in place. They're very complicated and difficult to use, but still, at least there's some standards for a lot of this intercarrier work. There are also, like, broadband has no standards, so that's the Wild West there. But there are some standards that people have built to over the years. What we're doing is we're actually translating between the old and the new, and so we can take in orders using any standard and deliver them and help to manage those orders to completion via any other standard. So we can take an ASOG and deliver via MEF or TM Forum or vice versa. And this is very useful to our customers in the United States and also U.S. based carriers that are doing work internationally. So that was just a couple points on the standards. I do want to talk a little bit about the ecosystem that from our perspective is exploding to the point where it's really sort of difficult to keep up. There's greater diversity and complexity than we've ever seen, with everything from consortiums and master agents and to different flavors of managed service providers and cloud providers, or even tower companies, and all now providing connectivity services. And we've seen some cases where we've got enterprise IT departments even bringing their own broadband and then layering services on top. So greater competition is good for the enterprises. It's definitely helps to find cost-effective, creative ways of getting connectivity they need, which is good. But it also means that everyone needs to step up their game and find ways to be successful in this environment. And the ability for carriers to easily and seamlessly connect and do business with each other, regardless of how you define carrier, will become increasingly crucial. And, just SD-WAN is a great example here. I mean, it's all about making connectivity frictionless, but the underlay network also needs to be frictionless as well. And otherwise, it becomes a massive bottleneck. And, from our perspective, the great news is that there is a solution. Neustar's Universal Order Connect is our hosted API-based platform that's used to deliver a simplified and automated product suite for ordering for any type of network connectivity with any provider using any standard or no standard at all. We've seen a great market response from service providers looking to modernize their OSS and BSS stacks and upgrade their customer experience. So that's been I think a real positive for us.
Thanks, John. Gentlemen, this has been fantastic. We have time just for one final question for both of you here. So Devesh, your final question here. What are some of the lessons you feel you've learned from your digital transformation journey? And if you have any messages for service providers looking to automate their service offerings, could you share with us? I guess that was two questions, Devesh. So.
I'll take them both, Jeff. Thanks. So in summary, I think I would touch upon the initial thing that I mentioned, that for service providers and technology providers who are wishing to automate or going through the digital transformation journey, I think the people resource is one of the biggest things that needs to change in terms of getting know-how and also getting trained in a scaled agile or some form of an agile framework, which allows both the software development team and also the IP networking team to work together hand in hand, because these solutions, they're very technical and there is software defined. So there are two worlds that need to combine to get this automation journey going for any carrier. So that's really crucial, I would say. In addition to that, I think instead of boiling the ocean, getting everything changed which would take a lot of time, I think the agile mindset says you could work in smaller MVPs or smaller minimum viable products in order to automate. So, for example, if a small business or a small carrier is providing access services in a country, they could look at just automating a quote and order piece. It could be as simple as providing a listed price for a set of metros within the country, and providing an API framework for a wholesale company to come and buy services from them. It could be as small as that, and it could stretch to somewhere where you have the entire network automated, and then you can provision and also build services on an automated fashion. So anywhere between those 2 points, if you start your journey and you kind of one step at a time automate your business processes, I think that the effect and also the benefit can be seen by those enterprise carriers. And finally, I'd also like to add that, please come and join MEF. There is a lot of excitement and work being done on the standardization of these business processes. And I think every company can come and contribute to that process and also learn from other carriers and take that standardized automated fabric home and get those APIs developed in your environment. Then it would help fuel the digital economy and have a good effect on services that require carrier to carrier automation. So please come and join MEF and help us in the endeavor to digital transform your network.
Love it. Devesh, thank you so much for that. John, take it home. Same topic here. Some of the lessons that you've learned along the way and any messages you have for service providers looking to automate their service offerings.
Sure. So look, for any service provider looking to automate their offerings and deliver services faster, and we've worked with a number of them, my key takeaway is they really need to ask themselves if the way they order inter-carrier connectivity is working for them. Sometimes you need to step back and look at your current tools and processes and ask if they still make sense. And I completely agree with Devesh. We also don't think there's any need to boil the ocean here. At Neustar, we're focused on simplifying and automating the wholesale buying and selling of network access. Neustar's Universal Order Connect is, we think, the only solution in the market that streamlines the process for ordering any type of wholesale access and transport connectivity, including broadband. And we talked about that. We've talked about the difficulties inherent in that. But we've also partnered with Connected to Fiber so that carriers can have a single interface to quickly locate which providers offer the right service at the right location, instantly get and compare quotes, and then turn them into orders with the click of a button. Our automated workflow simplifies order creation, validation, and submission, helping operators deliver connections up to 40% faster. And we also have a sell-side version of this solution. It's called UOC Marketplace, and it's for those looking to promote their wholesale services, automate order receipt, and provide customers with real-time status update. UOC is built on a modern technology stack with open APIs and snaps right into a carrier's OSS BSS stack as the easy button for ordering connectivity.
All right, and that's it for all of us. John, we're out of time. Gentlemen, that is a wrap. Thank you so much again for taking the time and for sharing your insights and expertise.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Devesh.
A special thanks to Devesh and John for taking time to chat with me about automation, underlying enterprise connectivity solutions, and how service providers are addressing these requirements for a unified digital experience. Thank you both for sharing your expertise with our audience. From Frank and Sean's perspectives as executives of two major industry players and market insights direct from the analyst's corner to an update on MEF's work and our deep dive of the day, we may have started in the clouds, but we didn't stay there. We covered a lot of ground too. And once again, we owe it all to the extraordinary support of our sponsors. A special thanks to them as well for making access to this content possible. Make sure you check out their sites on this platform after the show for additional content that may be of interest to you and opportunities to connect directly with them and one-to-one with each other. Don't forget to tune in to our next episode, Edge Innovation, Driving Competitive Advantage with Customized Services, airing August 11th. Fun times will be had by all. Until then, stay safe, and we'll see you back here as we continue to explore the infinite possibilities of the digital world across the network core, the cloud, and as always, the edge. I can't wait any longer. I gotta have this pineapple pizza. Does this look delicious or what? Oh, come on. Really trying to get it on my pizza? You're toasting pizza. Get out of here. You're taking this green screen thing a little too seriously. Oh, now there's thunder and light and a storm. Get water on my pizza.
Stop it. I'm over the green screen thing.
I'm done. I'm out of here.